Hey, I'm Di McQueen, licensed clinical social worker, family and addiction expert. I'm here with Dr. Brian Jackson, my longtime cohort who specializes in the field of addiction. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction.
Di and I have worked with addicts, alcoholics, and their families for over 30 years combined. Our podcast and coaching programs focus on families who have a loved one suffering from addiction. Our experience has been that this disease affects families as much, if not more, than the addict or alcoholic.
Is your world spinning out of control? Are you codependent? Are you experiencing worry, loss of sleep, and difficulty concentrating? If so, you're in the right place. Brian and I have both personally lived it, learned it, and now we're going to teach you tools and techniques on how to get your life back that you thought was shattered by addiction.
Okay, let's dive in.
Hey everybody, this is Di McQueen and welcome back to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. Today I wanted to talk about something that's just heavy on my heart right now, and kind of my journey through how to sort of deal with this topic, which is sort of multiple relapses and, what you can and cannot do. Understanding that there's only so much that even a practitioner can do. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is because throughout my career, in the beginning, I can remember thinking how much of this was my responsibility and how much, I could give these tools. And of course, because it was something that I'm teaching somebody, they're going to get it the first time around. In my own recovery, I haven't relapsed. So for me, it was in my head that even though I wasn't a trained professional at that time, that anybody that got sober was able to do this from now until forever. And then, of course, in time and in my own personal experiences, especially with my ex-husband, the fact is that many people relapse. And I'm not suggesting that I condone the behavior, but I certainly I had to learn through not only my personal journey, but through my professional journey, that all I am is an instrument and all we are is an instrument. It's really up to the person to make the final decision. And I don't know why some people can do it and why some people can't and where the line is drawn. What I have learned, however, is there are certain things that make it a little bit easier for some people than others, right? Part of it is being really, truly honest with self. And, that's layers for me and my own experience. And even when I think of, I've stayed sober, but have I been emotionally sober all those years? The answer to that question is no. I didn't know a lot of things. And the more that I've been in training and my own personal journey, I didn't realize how much trauma played into this stuff, where I came from played into this stuff, being an adult child of addiction and dysfunction. It makes a big difference when you recognize that each and every one of us have a different makeup based on where we came from. And some of us just can't tolerate the emotional side of that. Again, as an adult child, one of two things really happens, right? Which is I'm either overly emotional, non-emotional and dissociated, or I vacillate between them. And so depending on what the circumstances are, and what I see in my practice a lot, or in my coaching with people, both on the family side and on the side of the addict, is that depending on who they are, dictates a little bit about how that stuff goes. And it is not my job, nor is it anybody's job, to make a prediction about how that person needs to go through this. And, their job is to set the boundaries that are necessary to take care of themselves, to be able to have compassion to the best of their ability, but with, an understanding that there's sometimes, especially as a family member, right, that there are certain boundaries, and boundaries, as you have been learning through podcasts and social media, et cetera, are really about protection of self more than, this very definitive black and white line, right? It's not to hurt others, it's to protect me. And so when I make a decision that these things have entered my world or not entered my world, I don't have to be angry about things anymore. I just need to know where I stand. When I realize that people, we have different things, and most of the time it's a pretty good indication to me that somebody has not dealt with, something that is important in their life and gotten the tools down. some people move very quickly through those things and really understand, and they're able to pull back on uh, maybe their feelings, so they're not so intense, so they don't feel like they have to go ahead and put that fire out. Other people, it's too much, and they've dissociated so much that they aren't even in touch with the room. And so what I guess I'm getting at is, I hear a lot of times of people like, what's wrong with that person? God, they've gone ahead and relapsed 4 or 5 times now. And I'm like, why are you judging that? Is my question. Why do you think that you have the right to be able to do that and the ability to make a judgment about somebody else's journey? And that's what it is. Each and every one of us are on our own path and our own journey. Some of us are able to do it in a way that we get healthier much quicker, and others of us need to wallow in it for a little longer. You know, we always say, we can always refund your misery, right? But at the same time, we need tools and we need an understanding. It needs to click. A lot of times, I see that there's a lot of people in the rooms, out in the world that get the lingo down really quickly and they really understand, like, oh boy, they sound like they are Mr. or Mrs. Recovery. And in fact, they're, about as emotionally sober as the bench that they're sitting on. And I go, that is a judgment. But it's also when I hear those people making comments about other people and their journey. One of the first things that I really remember learning was how to stay in my lane. And I don't always do it perfectly, of course. I make mistakes. Obviously, with the people closest to me, I'm going to make more mistakes because I have a vested interest in making sure that their life is good. But at the same time, I really learned that when someone relapses, I remember the first time someone died, that was at my treatment center because they went out. And of course, they weren't in the building or anything like that. They had been, they hadn't shown up for a few days or whatever, but I got the news and it was devastating. I mean, absolutely devastating to me and my entire team. We had to kind of work through some stuff. And, again, it wasn't because of something that we had done. They had been released from the program, because you can't have people who are using and abusing in the rooms. But you can say to them, as I always did, we are welcome to have you back as soon as you are able to, be serious about, this recovery and trying to keep it together. We're here to help. But, I can't spare 40 to save one. And it was really hard to see that. But what I've learned is, again, something inside of me at that time was like, what did I do wrong? What else could I have done? I didn't do my job properly. How could this happen? And, having to go through that, talking to my team, talking to my sponsor, talking to my counselors, recognizing that I'm just not that powerful. And, my job is to really help someone learn tools and techniques. My job is to support. My job is to care. And that is deep and that's true and that's wide, right? And each person is different. That's another part of my job, which is to really understand and meet that person where they are, instead of going like some people, I have to try many different techniques and tools before they really decide that that might be something that is really a workable solution for them. And I know I hear it often where people go like, well, there's this cookie cutter way that we do something. And I'm like, there's not. Each and every individual, yes, there's techniques that we can try. Yes, there are things that we can do. I'm a big 12-step recovery person, so I love the steps. I think those are a great tool, but they are not the only tool. There are many other things. Sometimes people need medical assisted therapies. The only people that get to make that decision are doctors, their team of counselors, their nurses, whatever. The average person doesn't know whether or not a person needs chemistry. So I get frustrated sometimes when I hear people, say, hey, you know what, this person, they want to give them a antidepressant and they shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, well, I'm not the judge and jury on that. I have to hear what the person is doing. I have to understand what's going on in their world. We need to see why there's a multiple relapse. We do, oftentimes we will definitely work right through it and kind of see where exactly the situation began to occur, where a relapse started to take place. Sometimes we dissect that and really try to figure out, where are we missing the boat? What are the triggers? What are the things that are happening? But I think that, the message I'm trying to get across today is really meeting the person where they are and trying lots of different things to make a decision that is going to be best for that particular person, and learning how to pivot quickly when the person is having struggles. It may take someone a little bit more time, sometimes years, sometimes never. The idea is, for me, and for other practitioners and other people, family members, even other, the person themselves, when they relapse, to not make the judgment about, how bad they are. Rather, what can I learn from this experience, and what do I need to do differently moving forward? Do we need to try some other techniques? Am I open to trying and hearing things that may be uncomfortable for me? Am I putting up the big resistance and saying, no, 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 I'm not going to do that? Um, do I have people outside of the rooms telling me that I'm doing it incorrectly? And, hearing and listening to too much of that. Um, you know, I sometimes get that where, sponsor may tell someone, this is the only way you can do this, and you must do it my way. I've had lots of people relapse because their sponsor disapproved of them. Because I believe, a lot of times, as myself being a sponsor, that sometimes people take that stuff very personally, that something, they're inherently doing something wrong, or they do it the exact same way that it worked for them and the way they were taught. And I go, neither one of those things are bad. It's just sometimes it's not the appropriate thing for the person that they happen to have. You got to know your people, right? So, listening, I really spend a lot of time listening to who that person is, where they came from, what traumas they had, what's their issues. If abandonment is one of their issues and people are abandoning them right, left, and center, and they don't know how to deal with that inner child work, then it's very scary for them. And that emotion becomes tremendously overwhelming. So, the point of my story today is really to go like, hey, everybody is on their quest and their journey. That doesn't mean don't take care of yourself, family members, doesn't mean you're not allowed to set boundaries, doesn't mean enabling is going to be a good thing. It doesn't mean that you're never going to get mad or say something that you didn't necessarily mean. Our humanness comes out in this arena, and it really comes out probably more than it does in a lot of other places, right? There's nothing that can frustrate someone more, a family member, an employer, a doctor, a counselor, than when you see people going back into the same ring, going like, what are they doing? The self-sabotage, the shame, and looping themselves into that big well of shame so that they can get back to that feeling that's so familiar to them. That's the other understanding, is this is a very familiar feeling. And, we like to go back to what we know. That's what we do. But I've learned through my many years of practice, running a treatment center, um, spending time as a coach, that my responsibility lies with, did I try to do the best that I can do today and every day? Did I get up and show up for the person? Did I answer the phone on the other end when they called and said that they were in trouble? Did I give of my time willingly and freely when necessary, but also be accepting that it's okay to get paid for a service that I do? When I do all of those things and I go back through my script and I go, at this point in my game, I understand that I need to separate from that, because if I'm taking it personally, I'm not doing my job effectively. My job is to give them tools and techniques to explain and educate on how the chemistry in your brain works, why you do what you do, things to help them with trauma, the ART sessions that we do, somatic exercises that we've worked with, how to do grounding techniques and work with those things so that maybe the next time they can get through that a little easier. Being able to pick up the phone and call somebody, getting to a meeting, calling their counselor, getting to the ER, whatever it is that they need to do, asking another family member, if one says no, maybe another one will say yes, calling a friend, etc. It's one of those things that I get, on a pretty good rant about at times when I think that, someone is making judgments about how someone's recovery is going. I don't think there's such a thing as being necessarily too soft unless you're enabling. I think having compassion for people that are struggling and really having a hard time is the appropriate way to do things. But that does not mean that we don't set boundaries around those and that we don't make some hardcore calls sometimes. And unfortunately, there are times that we lose people based on that. I don't know. I wish I could get into a crystal ball in someone's mind and be able to figure out why this person can do it and this person can't. Some people believe it's because someone's not being honest. I go, well, in my mind, there's layers of honesty as well, right? Like I can remember in early recovery, I was being as honest as I could possibly be at that time. When I fast forward another 25 years, I go, oh my goodness, I wasn't being honest at all, but I was at the time to the best of my ability. Am I still playing a victim? Some people love that role and that's where they are. And yes, they do need to toughen up, but that's a process as well. And, just telling someone to suck it up doesn't really work. That's not helpful. It's not something that's going to embrace somebody to try harder. It usually does just the opposite. And especially if you're a child or an adult child that came from go figure it out or no kind of love and kindness, that kind of stuff backfires. It doesn't work. I remember when I was in early recovery and, and I had this person screaming in my face. And I remember thinking, do you really think that that is going to work for me? I mean, that's what I came from. Do you really think that that is what's going to make it better for me or make me stop and go, oh my God? No, the truth was I knew what I wanted and I knew that what I was doing wasn't working well for me, but it wasn't because someone was screaming in my face. And I remember telling her, I said, if you actually think that's going to work, you got another thing coming. Like if I could right now, I'd go use because that's what you're making me feel like I want to do. So, because it's not supportive, there's nothing inherently wrong with me because that's where I came from. But that's the way I was meant to feel because, something was wrong with us that we were using and abusing. That tough love, I don't believe that. So that's my pitch on this thing. I would go at it in a much more gentle manner, which is yes, what can I do to be supportive of that situation? What are we going to do differently? Let's dissect. Let's learn some new skill sets. Let's practice them. Let's not give ourselves the out. Let's, if necessary, use medically assisted therapies for a time, maybe not forever, maybe some people forever. I don't know because I'm not a doctor. And I lean towards the doctors, may have a discussion with them about what I see, behavior changes that need to be made. Those are important. Goals and techniques, making sure that someone has the support around them that they need. Those are the many things that will help get someone on to the next place. I've had many people throughout my career where they bounce through 4 or 5 times and then boom, they're on the road and they finally, get it. And it just takes a little bit longer for them. So I hope that that is a helpful little talk today, just about maybe before making judgments about what someone's, recovery journey looks like for them. That's really our job is not to do that. Our job is to be there, be supportive. If I can't step away from, that's okay too. Take care of yourself first and work on the rest of this stuff and letting other people, professionals, etc., help these people in a way that might be better. Maybe we have to readjust and figure that out, but not to judge the fact that someone has had, their journey the way it works for them. Um, there's still wonderful things on our website where you can see some great information in our family survival kit. You are always welcome to send Dr. Jackson or myself an email with questions. We're happy to answer them. We get them all the time, and we love to answer questions about things that might be of concern to you. You can always set up a free consult with us on our website as well. Again, this is Di McQueen, Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. And I hope that this just opens up your mind to a little bit more compassion. Thanks so much for joining our podcast, Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with more important tools, techniques, and ways for you to focus on you instead of the alcoholic or addict in your world.
Until then, please go to our website, familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's familyandaddictionexperts.com. You'll also see links to our Facebook and Instagram pages. Please also, if you have any emails that you would like to send us, that's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. With any thoughts, feelings, questions that you may have for us, we would love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.